Hello everyone, my name is Dragan. I am part of Group C and I'll start our presentation today. Our project is focused on creating the IT project management scope and schedule for a cybersecurity awareness and training program. In my section, I'll cover the project scope and stakeholder requirements which set the foundation for everything that follows. After that, my teammates will go into the schedule, methodology, execution, and leadership aspects. Let's get started by looking at the scope of our project. A project scope is one of the most critical elements in ensuring clarity, alignment, and success. For the cybersecurity awareness and training program, the scope defines exactly what will be delivered, the boundaries of the project, and what will intentionally not be included. Without a clearly defined scope, IT projects often face scope creep, waste resources, and misaligned stakeholder expectations. The purpose of this project is to create a security-first culture with the organization by equipping employees at all levels with the knowledge and skills to recognize and respond to cyber threats. In today's digital environment, most breaches occur due to human error, commonly through phishing emails, weak password, and unsafe browsing habits. By addressing these vulnerabilities through targeted awareness and training, the project contributes directly to risk reduction and regulatory compliance. This defined scope includes 4 key deliverables. Cybersecurity training module tailored to defined employee groups designed to cover topics like phishing recognition, password management, and safe online behavior. Phishing simulation that mimic real-world attack, providing employee with practice in recognizing and reporting threats. A reporting dashboard that track participation, completion rates, and simulation performance, giving both management and compliance officers visibility into outcomes. Evaluation and feedback mechanism to continuously refine training effectiveness. Equally important is defining what falls outside of scope. The project will not include vendor-provided certifications such as CompTIA, Security Plus, or CISSP, nor will it provide advanced technology training for IT specialists. The intent is to focus on organization-wide awareness rather than specialized technical certification. Clearly stating this, we prevent misaligned expectation and keep resources directly towards the intended outcomes. The scope aligns closely with the organization's broader goals of compliance and risk management. In regulated industries such as healthcare or finance, failure to adequately train employees can result in severe fines, reputation damage, and legal consequences. Setting these boundaries, the project demonstrates its contribution to strategic priorities without overextending its resources. Scope definition also creates accountability. It allows the project manager to measure whether the project stayed within its defined boundaries and whether the promised deliverables were actually provided. For example, if a scope promises phishing simulation, leadership can evaluate whether those simulations were deployed, developed, and assessed by the end of the project. In agile methodologies, which is this project uses, scope is not entirely rigid but evolves through iterative development. However, the high-level boundaries established in the scope statement provide a North Star that ensures iterations remain aligned with the project's mission. Agile sprints may refine content or introduce new phishing scenarios, but they will always be tied back to the defined goal of raising awareness and reducing risk. The project scope defines what the cybersecurity awareness and training program will achieve, what it will deliver, and what it will exclude. It provides a shared understanding for stakeholders, prevents wasted efforts, and ensure alignment with organizational strategy. Setting these parameters early, the project is positioned for success. Identifying stakeholders is one of the most important steps in defining the scope of an IT project because stakeholders directly influence project priorities, resource allocation, and overall success. In the context of a cybersecurity awareness and training program, stakeholders include not only those who fund or manage the project, but also the individuals who will ultimately use the deliverables. Each group has different interests, level of influence, and expectations, and recognize those differences early is key to building alignment. The executive leadership team is the first major stakeholder group. Executives play a critical role by providing funding, strategic direction, and visible support for the project. Their main interest lies in reducing organizational risk, ensuring compliance with regulations, and protecting the company's reputation. Executives want to see a clear return on investment, which may come in the front of fewer data breaches, lower compliance costs, or improved audit results. If executives are not fully engaged as stakeholders, the project may lack the necessary resources or organizational momentum to success. The IT security staff represents another essential group of stakeholders. These individuals bring technical expertise to the project and are responsible for ensuring that the training content reflects real-world threats and best practices. They will also monitor and analyze the outcomes of phishing simulations and other technical components of the project. IT security staff often act as subject matter expert, providing input on what employees need to know to recognize and respond to cyber threats. Their involvement ensures that the project scope is realistic, technically sound, and aligned with the organizational overall security strategies. General employees, the end users of the training, are perhaps the most critical stakeholders for an impact perspective. Employees interact with phishing attempts, handle sensitive data, and use company system daily. Their level of awareness and adherence to best practices will ultimately determine whether the program is effective or not. If employees are not engaged or find the training irrelevant or too difficult, the program will fail to meet its objectives. Including employee feedback early through surveys or pilot sessions ensure that their needs and perspectives are considered when designing training modules. The HR department also plays a key role as a stakeholder. HR is often responsible for tracking employee training completion, maintaining compliance records, and integrating cybersecurity training into onboarding or annual review processes. HR's perspectives ensure that the training program is accessible, inclusive, and supported by the proper administrative system. Without HR's involvement, there may be gaps in tracking participation or changes in enforcing training requirements. And finally, compliance officers serve as critical stakeholders, particularly in industry subjects to regulations like HIPAA, PCI DSS, or GDPR. Compliance officers ensure that the training program meets legal and regulatory standards and that documentation is sufficient to satisfy audit. Their focus is less on day-to-day operations and more on ensuring that the organization can demonstrate compliance and accountability. Their input ensures that the scope of the project includes appropriate reporting mechanism and documentation practices. Beyond identifying these stakeholder groups, it is important to understand their relevant influence and interest. Executives and compliance officers typically hold high influence as they can determine funding and regulatory approval. IT staff and HR have medium to high influence as they shape the program technical and administrative execution. Employee may be lower influence individually, but collectively they represent the ultimate measure of project success. Mapping stakeholders on power interest grid or maintaining a stakeholder register are effective tools for managing this complexity. Engaging stakeholders also means balancing potential conflict. Executives may prioritize cost efficiency, while compliance officers demand through documentation and employee ask for shorter, more engaging training sessions. These competing interests must be addressed through careful communication and compromise. The earlier these needs are recognized and prioritized, the smoother the project will proceed. Stakeholders identification is not just a preliminary task. It is the foundation of project alignment. Recognizing the needs and influence of executive staff, IT staff, employees, HR, and compliance officers, the project managers, ensure that the cybersecurity awareness program is designed with a 360-degree perspective. Proper stakeholder engagement prevents resistance, secures resources, and increases the likelihood that the training program will be effective, sustainable, and aligned with organizational goals. Collecting stakeholder requirements is one of the most critical yet challenging steps in defining the scope of an IT project. Requirements gathering ensures that the final deliverables meet the expectations of stakeholders, solve the right problems, and create measurable value for the organization. For a cybersecurity awareness and training program, this process is especially important because different stakeholders have different needs and the threats landscape is constantly evolving. One of the most effective research techniques is conducting interviews and surveys with key stakeholders. For executives, interviews can focus on strategic goals, risk reduction, and compliance requirements. For employees, survey can assess their baseline cybersecurity knowledge, perception of current training, and preference for a learning format. IT security staff may be interviewed to identify the most pressing technical threats employees need to understand, such as phishing, ransomware, or social engineering. Creating those interviews and surveys to each group, the project team gains a well-rounded picture of requirements. Another valuable method is holding focus groups and workshops. These sessions bring stakeholders together to share their perspective and brainstorm solutions. For example, a focus group of employees could provide feedback on proposed training modules, highlighting which content feels relevant and which seems overly technical. Workshops with HR and compliance officers can help define requirements for tracking completion rates and producing reports for audits. These collaborative methods not only capture requirements but also build stakeholder buy-in by involving participants in the process. Analyzing real-world case studies of cyber breaches is another powerful tool. Many organizations learn the importance of cybersecurity training only after experiencing a costly incident. Reviewing publicized breaches such as phishing-related attacks on large corporations can highlight gaps that the training program must address. For example, if a breach occurred because employee failed to recognize spear phishing attempt, the requirement might be to include advanced phishing awareness scenarios. Using external case studies adds credibility to requirements and ensures that the training is grounded in real risks. Industry standards and frameworks provide another foundation for requirement collection. Guidelines for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, ISO, IEC standards, or recommendations for organizations like SANS Institute outline best practices for security awareness training. Incorporating these standards ensures that requirements are not only shareholder driven but also aligned with recognized benchmarks in cybersecurity. This helps the organization stay competitive, compliant, and prepared for audits. Once requirements are collected, they must be prioritized based on impact and feasibility. Not every request can be implemented due to constraints of time, budget, or resources. Tools such as MOSCOV method, must have, should have, could have, won't have, or agile backlog prioritization can help categorize requirements. For example, phishing simulations may be identified as a must-have, while a gamified training module could be labeled as should-have. This prioritization ensures that the project team delivers maximum value within constraints. One of the biggest challenges in requirements collection is dealing with conflict priorities. Executives may want a cost-effective solution, compliance officers may insist on detailed reporting, and employees may ask for shorter, more engaging training. These conflicts require careful negotiation and transparent communication to ensure that the most critical requirements are met while still maintaining stakeholder satisfaction. Another challenge is the fact that requirements for a cybersecurity training program are not static. The threat landscape changes rapidly and new type of attacks emerge regularly. This means that requirements gathering must be treated as an iterative process rather than one-time task. Agile methodology supports these by allowing scope and requirements to be refined over successive sprints. Feedback loops from pilot tests and ongoing phishing simulation provide real-world data that can shape future iterations of the program. Collecting stakeholder requirements involves multiple methods, including interviews, surveys, focus groups, case study analysis, and reference to industry standards. It requires prioritization, conflict resolution, and ongoing refinement. While the process is difficult due to competitive interests and evolving threats, it is essential for ensuring that the cybersecurity awareness and training program is effective, relevant, and aligned with the organizational goals. Investing the efforts upfront and maintaining continuous feedback, the project team creates a solid foundation for project success. Linking the project scope to the chosen project management methodology is essential to ensuring that the cybersecurity awareness and training program can be executed successfully. For this project, the selected methodology is Agile, which provides flexibility, adaptability, and iterative improvements. Connecting the defined scope of the project to Agile practices, we create a management framework that not only delivers the required outcomes, but also adapts effectively to changing stakeholder needs and emerging cyber threats. Agile methodology is particularly well suited for IT projects like this. One, because of its iterative structure. Instead of attempting to deliver the entire training program as a single, large deliverable, Agile breaks the scope into smaller, manageable increments called sprints. Each sprint focuses on producing a functional piece of the project, such as phishing simulation module, a reporting dashboard update, or a training video. At the end of each sprint, the deliverable is tested, reviewed by stakeholders, and refined for improvement. This cycle continues until the project scope is fully achieved. One of the strengths of Agile it is ability to incorporate stakeholder involvement through the process. As we saw in earlier slides, stakeholders include executive, IT staff, HR, compliance officers, and general employees. Agile provides multiple opportunities for these groups to review program and give feedback at sprint review or daily stand-ups. For example, employees might pilot test a phishing simulation in one sprint and provide feedback on its clarity and realism. The feedback is then incorporated into the next sprint, refining the module before organization-wide rollout. This direct stakeholder involvement ensures that the evolving deliverables remain relevant and aligned with expectations. Agile also ensures that the scope remains flexible in the face of evolving threats. Cybersecurity is a rapid changing field with new attack methods emerging consistently. If the scope had been managed under a rigid methodology like waterfall, it might have been difficult to adapt the training content once the project was underway. While Agile, however, the scope is continuously refined as part of the sprint cycle. For example, if a new form of phishing attempt becomes widespread during the course of the project, the team can add a new simulation or training video in subsequent sprint. This ability to adapt ensures that the project scope remains relevant and effective even as conditions change. Another important connection between scope and Agile is the concept of prioritization through backlogs. In Agile, requirements and deliverables are maintained in a product backlog, which the project team prioritizes each sprint. The backlog becomes the operationalized version of the scope statement. For example, develop fishing simulation. From the scope is broken down into smaller backlog items such as create spear fishing scenario or test simulation reporting future. By managing scope in this way, Agile ensures that the most critical deliverables are addressed first, maximizing value for the organization. Agile also supports the project's goal of fostering a security-first culture by encouraging continuous feedback and improvement. Instead of waiting until the end of the project to evaluate whether the scope has been achieved, Agile measures progress at every sprint. This creates opportunity for quick adjustment, increasing transparency for stakeholders, and building trust in project team. Finally, linking scope to Agile methodology aligns with the organizational broader objective of efficiency, compliance, and engagement. Using Agile, the project team demonstrates its ability to deliver valuable incrementally, adapt to new risks, and keep stakeholders actively engaged. This not only ensures that the project scope is met, but also increases the likelihood of long-term program sustainability. In conclusion, connecting the project scope to Agile methodology provides the structure and flexibility necessary for success. Agile allows the cybersecurity training program to be deployed iteratively, refined with stakeholder input, and adapted to emerging threats. The backlog translates high-level scope items into actionable tasks, while sprints ensure continuous progress and alignment with organizational goals. Using Agile, the project team ensures that the project remains relevant, efficient, and impactful for initiation through completion.